Welcome back to Business Arabia. Iraqi Oil Minister Hussein al-Shahristani is saying that his country will not increase its oil exports in support of fellow OPEC member states who want to maintain world crude prices. According to Shahristani, Iraq is now able to increase exports to 1.9 million barrels per day from the previous level of 1.6 million, but won't necessarily export that quantity in solidarity with OPEC, saying, "We do not want to dump crude onto the market while it is suffering from surplus production because we are keen to maintain world prices." Iraq is a founding member of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, but its production has not been included in official OPEC output quotas since the UN imposed sanctions for its August 1990 invasion of Kuwait. Well, we go now to Kuwait, and joining us from there is Dr. Talal al-Bazali, Assistant Professor at the Kuwait University in the Petroleum Engineering Department. Dr. Talal, thanks for joining us today on Business Arabia. Saudi Oil Minister Ali al-Naimi had said earlier this week that there was no need for an emergency OPEC meeting to discuss a possible output cut in production, and he described the situation in the crude oil market as being healthy. Does this sound like OPEC is going to keep production as is in the upcoming meeting in March?
I don't think so, but this is what Mr. al-Naimi is trying to do. He's trying to play reverse psychology on the market. He and the rest of the OPEC ministers have tried to go on the other side, being panicky and trying to give promises of oil production, of oil cuts and emergency meetings and everything, and that strategy did not work out. So what he's trying to do is basically he's trying to tell the market, we're good, the market is good, there is no need for oil cuts, but in fact he believes within himself that there will be an oil production cuts in their upcoming meeting in March, or they might have a meeting sooner than that in late February.
So then you think this is a psychological game?
Absolutely, because you got to understand, in October they have done this whole basically bonanza about oil prices going down and further cuts and everything, and what they did, they cut oil production by 1.2 million barrels a day, and that did not really bode well for the market. The same scenario happened in November, in December in Abuja. They cut the oil production by 500,000, and that did not basically do anything. You got to understand, the market now is basically trying to build expectations for oil prices. He's trying to prevent the market from discounting any future cuts in March. So he's trying to tell them, look, we're not going to meet, we're not going to cut oil production, and this is what it is. So the market will basically accept these conditions, and once we reach March or February, if they meet earlier, any further production cuts will be basically a shock to the market, and that would probably send a positive message to the market by raising oil prices.
What long-term price do you think OPEC is targeting?
Well, I mean, they have been very clear about this. I mean, they have been very honest about it. They said they want to see oil prices about 60s, basically. And some of them went even further when they said, well, we think 60 is the right price for oil prices. But pinpointing an oil price is a bad strategy for OPEC. We've said that in the past. They should basically try to work with the range. And we always thought mid-50s to upper 60s would be good for the oil producers and as well as the oil consumers. So I think they're looking at anywhere 55 to 60, $62 a barrel.
Some analysts suggest that Saudi opposition to OPEC cuts is based more on politics than business. The Saudis, they say, want to starve Iran of needed oil revenues because Saudi rulers are Sunni Muslims and increasingly worried about Iran's backing of fellow Shiite Muslims who rule Iraq. How much do you think, in your opinion, how much do you think politics is part of the Saudi decision?
Well, I mean, I've read this in a couple of articles, but I do understand that the Saudis are very smart about things. They do not mix politics with economics. So I don't think this is true. I think the Saudis, as well as the Iranians, as well as the rest of the OPEC members, they understand that oil prices is mainly driven by two things: A, the fundamental effects, which is supply and demand, and B, the psychological effects. And they know that the fundamental effects are bad because they understand the oil markets are very flooded with oil, so they're trying to play with the psychological factor, which is trying to basically send the signals for cuts and oil production cuts in hope to raise oil prices. But I do not think that politics should be mixed with this, and I do not think they are going that route.
Should the situation between Iran and the US escalate, how do you think this is going to affect oil prices?
Right. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, Iran produces close to 3.8 million barrels a day. And if anything happens to any of the Iranian oil, stream to the markets, that you're taking basically out 3.8 million, which is more than 5% of the oil supply. And that should basically send a very negative signal to the market, and oil prices would react. And not necessarily in a positive way, but I mean, they will go up definitely, but it will be a shock more than anything that has to do with fundamentals. So if anything happens in Iran in terms of unrest in the political situation, definitely oil prices could go back up to 70 or 80 or 100 for that matter, since Iran is really a major player in the oil market.
Dr. Talal Al-Bazali coming to us from Kuwait. Thanks very much for joining us today on Business Arabia. We'll take a short break now, but after the break, a Gulf Arab airline plans an upcoming IPO, and the CEO gives us all the details. Plus, regional markets, what should investors be looking out for? Those stories coming up after this break. Stay with us.